So in this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, we're introduced to Anubis. I knew he was going to come eventually because, you know, he's one of the Egyptian gods, but I did not expect him to come so soon. So this episode is part 1 of Anubis, so this is going to be one of the first battles, or the first, battles we're going to get from second part of part 3, that is going to be multiple episodes long. So with this episode, it sets us up with a cliffhanger that is pretty nasty. Like, the cliffhanger ends us off on where Polnareff is about to get his neck slit by Anubis, so I'm not a big fan of that cliffhanger at all, but I want to dive in and actually discuss Anubis. So, Anubis. From what I can understand from this stand, I'm going to assume that the actual sword is just the stand, and there's probably someone way off in the distance, maybe a long ways away, that's able to remotely control this sword, his stand. And if anyone actually grabs this sword, he can invade that person's mind and use that person's, body. So I'm assuming that that's what's going on here. For instance, there's another main stand user way off in the distance that actually controls the sword and speaks for the sword, and then controls the actual human body. So I feel like that's what's going on with this power. Now, here's the thing. With this actual stand, this stand is pretty scary as fuck. Like, first things right off the bat, Polnareff looks at the sword, and he was trying to open the sword, and as soon as he looked at the sword, he was, just drawn into the sword, he's like, oh, it's beautiful, I want to open it up a lot longer, and, he was just mesmerized by this, sword, Anubis' sword, and so, it just shows you the power of this stand. If you were to grab the sword and open it up and look at it, your mind will be invaded if you don't have someone to help you. In this episode, we see some clear weaknesses to Anubis' sword. Iggy actually saves Polnareff from being taken over by the sword, Anubis' sword, because Iggy was barking and growling and stuff, and it got it to where Polnareff turned around, and, the overall effects of Anubis didn't affect him. But in that act of doing that, Polnareff states that his mind felt very hazy, like he was out of it, like he was, about to fall over from dizziness because he was just so mesmerized by the sword. It seems like in that moment, Polnareff forgot what he was really trying to accomplish with that sword, because the first time he looked at the sword when he was grabbing it and all that and trying to open it, the reason why he opened it is because he thought there was something suspicious about it, because it might have been a stand user, because it didn't disappear after he beat the previous stand owner. And so, Polnareff most likely had his mind or something messed with too, for Anubis' sword will not be, targeted as the enemy. Because I find it very weird how Polnareff is actually looking at the sword, and he's like, this looks like an enemy. He's looking as if it's an enemy stand or something, but it didn't disappear. And after he's done looking at it, as soon as he opens it up, it seems like he forgot about it. So I'm assuming Anubis' sword also messes with the memory. So, Iggy. You gotta love Iggy. Iggy needs to be listened to a lot more. I mean, he may be an asshole, he may be a jerk, he may be someone that loves farting on Polnareff's face all the time, but the Iggy knows what's up. He was barking and growling at Anubis' sword the entire episode. Ever since Iggy first laid eyes on that sword, Iggy was just sitting there growling at it. If Polnareff and Jotaro and all them actually keyed in on that, they could have realized that they had an enemy among them. So I can't wait to see until Jotaro and all of them actually start realizing Iggy detects enemies and starts barking at them if they're way too close to him. So, the episode overall, it sets up the Anubis arc, or whatever arc we're currently getting into. I guess we are in the Egyptian arc, but I mean, we're currently in, the Anubis arc. But Anubis seems really cool. I'm liking the overall abilities of his stand, being able to cut through different objects and hit its target. Cutting through Polnareff's clothing and the pillar, the stone pillar. It didn't even affect the sword. His sword went straight through the stone pillar and the clothing to cut Polnareff. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So that's really weird. A really weird-ass ability that stand has. It has some really creepy abilities, but it's a really, really cool stand. Can't wait to see more from it in next week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Overall, the episode, it had some comedy here and there, but it was mainly a battle-orientated episode that was really serious and trying to set up this stand user. So, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or not wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.